Welcome to Bleach Revisited. This is Carcra Gold, and as always, we'll be reading some Bleach today with Chapter 17. As before, if you've been following, you'll know this starts the third volume of Bleach, so we'll get the beginning of the volume as we start here. But as always, it's going to be a reading, an analysis, response, and then talking about spoilers, how it connects, this chapter to the rest of the manga. So, without further ado, let's get into the video and the reading. This is Bleach, Volume 3. It's a Shonen Jump manga with story and art by Pfft. I tend to get worried about the seasons in Bleach as opposed to the actual seasons in real life. The series started in the summer, but at that time, N was May in the book. That discrepancy has always bothered me. In this volume, the introduction of Ichigo, the main character, finally comes to an end. The setting is June. Unexpectedly, this all worked out quite well. If possible, please read this on a rainy night. Pfft. Bleach's author, Pfft's second title. Kubo made his debut in Zombie Powder, a 4-volume series for Weekly Shonen Jump. To date, Bleach has been translated into numerous languages and has also inspired an animated TV series that began airing in Japan in 2004. Beginning its serialization in 2001, Bleach is still a mainstay in the pages of Weekly Shonen Jump. In 2005, Bleach was awarded the prestigious Shogakukan Manga Award for the Shonen Boys category. If I were rain that joins sky and earth that otherwise never touch, could I join two hearts as well? Bleach, Volume 3, Memories in the Rain. This is the Bleach All Stars and Stories. We have Orihime Inoue, Rukia Kachiki, Ichigo Kurosaki, as well as Masaki Kurosaki, Isshin Kurosaki, and Tatsuki Arasawa. Here's the plot. Ichigo Kurosaki, 15 years old. Except for being able to see ghosts, he is an ordinary high school student. But when he meets the Soul Reaper, Rukia Kuchiki, his life takes a dramatic turn for the bizarre, leading Ichigo to use his enormous spiritual energy to help Rukia do her job. A Soul Reaper cleanses fallen souls called Hollows of their sins and guides them to the Soul Society. But as Ichigo fights an assortment of Hollows, he not only encounters souls who have lost their way in death, but one who has committed unforgettable crimes in life as well. Bleach, Chapter 17, June 17th. That's the reason I decided I would protect them till I die. That's the real reason. Bleach, Chapter 17, June 17th. Hey, wake up, Ichigo! It's morning. Morning, you hear? If you don't get your butt out of bed, I'll climb through your book bag and go to school with you, and all the girls will say, "Ha ha, little Ichigo's got a teddy bear, freak!" Ow, 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 ow. Hey, let me go. You gotta act like a stuffed animal cone. They don't walk around. Arnag. This is where this story begins, right? Now, I would never treat a real plush toy like that. The mod soul. Ow! After the incident with the mod, we needed to find a body for him, so we looked around. But if we put him into a living thing, the original soul would be forced out, like mine was. No intention of putting a mod into a human. Waiting for a cat to get run over. But fresh corpses are harder to find than you'd think. As a last resort, we tried putting him into a cast-off teddy bear we found on the street. The results were mixed. Ow! I told you to be gentle with me! Wow, it doesn't need to be in an organic body. What a surprise. By the way, we decided to name him Khan, because he's a Kaizo Kanpaku, Mod Soul. We considered Kai, but Kai is way too cool a name for him. Hey, you're... Are you trying to wake the neighbors? Can a Soul Reaper get dressed in peace? Huh? You're okay. Stand right there. Oh, stop! My stuffing's coming out. Morons. Ichigo! Whoa! Hide! Hide! Can I come in? Sure. Ichigo, like, what are you doing? Nothing. Nothing suspicious. What do you want, Yuzu? It's early. It's not that early. Mizuro's waiting for you. Mizuro? What time is it? Crap. Yeah, so hurry and get ready. And apologize to Mizuro from Dad's bedroom window. You're making him wait. Mizuro! Sorry, I just woke up. Come in for a minute, okay? Sure. The memories of the last incident. All that trouble Khan caused. Or Cone. Because Khan, I think it's Kanpaku, so I'll go with Khan. Khan. Were erased from... Or maybe it is Konpaku. Whatever. You'll hear me say both. The memories of that last incident, all the trouble that Khan caused, were erased from the guys at school, at least. Rukia says that Mr. Haddenclogs told me his name, but I managed to forget it somehow. She said he'd get in big trouble if it became known that he let Khan go. Anyway, I'm glad I can't remember it. He'll just have to go on being Mr. Haddenclogs. Who cares? I've got to get to school! Bye, Ichigo. See you at school. Yeah. Oh man, why didn't Dad wake me up? He usually busts in and... What? Why the look? Nothing. Wow, it's tomorrow. Ichigo. Tatsuki! What? Tatsuki, you're in art, right? Yeah. Did you do my future assignment? Yeah, why? Can I see it? Mine's not very good. Wow, that's great! I'm gonna be a female valet tudo champ. Mine's so bad, I don't even want to show you. You draw so well. Wouldn't you rather be an artist? I'm glad you asked. Oh, I jumped ahead there. What about you, Orihime? What did you draw? I'm glad you asked. I'm secretly proud of it. I wonder what she... Future me. Maximum velocity, 240 miles per hour. 20,000 degrees Celsius flames shoot from my mouth, and my eyes project destruction beams. No, Orihime, that's not the assignment. You'll get detention for that. Maybe jail time. Huh? Ichigo! Hi! How's it going, Orihime? What's going on? Ichigo's, like, being friendly? Huh? Orihime? What's the matter with Ichigo? Huh? What do you mean? I've never seen him smile like that. Michiru, what's the date today? June 16th. Why? Thanks. Orihime, you're very perceptive. It took me 3 years to pick up on that. Tatsuki? If you have any urgent business with him, take care of it today. Ichigo won't be at school tomorrow. Regretfully, this faculty will be closed tomorrow, June 17th. We apologize for any inconvenience or loss of life. Management at the Kurosaki Clinic. Okay, let's have a meeting and go over everybody's job for tomorrow. And remember, as chairman, I hold all decision-making power. As if? What kind of meeting is this? Hey, raise your hand if you wish to speak, Chief of Staff. Chief Chief of Staff, pleased despite herself. Yuzu, you'll be in charge of lunch as usual. Okay. Karen, you'll load the packs. Huh? And last item of business, I got a haircut for the occasion. How do I look? Exactly the same. That looked like fun. What? You know, the family meeting. So you're skipping school tomorrow and going on a picnic or something, right? Look, Rukia, about my Soul Reaver duties, could I maybe take off tomorrow? What? Take a day off? Of course not. Are you crazy? You've been acting strange all day. It's the anniversary of the day my mother died. No, actually, not the day she died. The day she was killed. That's it for chapter 17. We don't get a little omake, a little in between there. We just hop right into chapter 18. So that's all we have there for that chapter. Introduces quite a few things. I'm excited to get to talk about it and get into the beginning of Bleach Volume 3 here. So, let me hop back to the beginning here, and we can get into kind of my analysis and response of the chapter. As always, if I bring up anything that you're not aware of, that you didn't realize, or if I make you think of something new in regards to Bleach, I think it's only reasonable that you give this video a like, thumbs up. If you got through this entire video and you knew everything I was talking about, you already were familiar with all this in regards to Bleach, that's awesome. That's great. If you've got, something that you noticed that I didn't, then please let me know in the comments, because I really want to see your takes on this, what you think, what you see going on, your response, so on and so forth. So, as always, I'm really interested to see where everybody else is with this. Anyway, this is Bleach Volume 3. We get the volume art with Orihime here. Kind of interesting. We have our first volume was Ichigo, of course, in the Shuhaka show, in his Soul Reaper get up, right? And then whenever we come over to what is it? Volume 2 is Rukia. So Volume 3 having Orihime maybe kind of sells us on like, okay, well, we're maybe going to get volume covers with each of the main characters. Who knows? Obviously Ichigo is our main character, Rukia is our female lead, but Orihime seems to be pretty important as well, right? She got the first story arc really dedicated to her. Kind of interesting thing about this bit of art is that she has this like, I don't know, like it's like a like a long piece of cloth. I wouldn't say it's a tie, but it's like tied around her legs, but it's coming from like her neck, right? She's got it tied around her neck. But that's sort of like really long ribbon or something. I feel like that's maybe supposed to reflect the soul chain, right? Because it's like comes out of your chest and it's this kind of long chain that might bind you up. But otherwise, I don't know. I don't know if there's anything else really going on with this design that's that important. I mean, obviously, Kubo's really playing up like Orihime's breastedness, but you're gonna sell your waifus one way or another, I guess. I don't know. Gotta have attractive females in your shonen manga for the boys. At the very least, that seems to be most people's approach. We get this forward from Kubo where he talks about the series starting in May, which is something that we actually picked up on before. But this volume is in June, so he feels like, hey, maybe it works out. We are 17 chapters in, so if you think, okay, this is being published weekly, then 17 chapters is over the course of, that's 4 chapters a month, right? We're looking at already being into the 4th month of publication. So, I don't know how well it lines up with like timeline, but maybe it's so. Obviously, rain's pretty important. Kubo mentions that here. If possible, read this on a rainy night. And that's, we also get another mention of the rain here in the character poem. So usually these poems are attributed to the character that is pictured, or another character here, but here we have Orihime, and we have the poem. Um, the idea of, sky and earth are these like worlds that are apart, that don't touch, and like being the entity that can kind of join those two, that it's like a bridge between those worlds, and maybe also being able to like find the connections between other people. That's, I don't know how thematic that is for any specific character, but it is certainly, all stuff that's at the heart of Bleach, right? We have these, this real importance on the bonds that these characters have, how they kind of connect to each other, and Ichigo wanting to protect those that he cares about, right? The joining of those hearts, maybe not in a romantic sense, but certainly in the sense of having that connection with another person. And obviously with Orihime, we can think of it in a more romantic way, where she really wants to have this closer connection to Ichigo romantically, but that's something that she struggles with. But the idea of also being this being that exists in this liminal space, right? Like the rain, this thing between sky and earth. That there's these two different places of existence, and you're this entity between them that joins the two. Very much like there's Soul Society and Earth, and Ichigo is this kind of human but Soul Reaper that's between them, right? Um, so the idea of these people that are kind of in these spaces in between, and maybe what they can affect because of their unique position, I think that's kind of what's important here, what's kind of going on. But also just evoking this image of the rain, of connection, of longing. That's all pretty important. And of course, rain comes up here. Memories in the Rain being the volume title. We get reminder of the characters that are going to be playing a central kind of part in this volume. Orihime's there, as well as Rukia, Ichigo, Ichigo's mother and father, so Misaki and Ishin, as well as Tatsuki, Ichigo's friend, childhood friend, knows him probably the best. I'm going to be reading these as the actual date, right, June 17th, because obviously that's what it's an allusion to. 6/17, like calendar June 17th. That's also the date that Ichigo's mother died, right? So we get this opening with, of course, the rain, and with the black background, we get that this is like maybe an event that happened in the past, right? That's been used already, kind of for flashback within Bleach. And the interplay of like blacks and whites is like those the kind of extreme use of those colors is something that Kubo likes to really explore, and how that has different effects, both for kind of drawing attention, making a moment dramatic, aligning something with either the Soul Society or otherwise. It's interesting, right? There's a lot going on there with blacks and whites, and the series is called Bleach, right? But here, the black is being used to kind of establish this, maybe as a dramatic moment for sure, like it's all cast kind of at night, but also it's firmly in the past. We kind of zoom in on this city setting. There's blood splattered across these rocks. We see a little bit of hair, um, which we can assume to be Ichigo's, but we're not sure, right? And then we get this internalization that we've come to find is from Ichigo, where he decided that he's going to protect people until he dies, or protect them, right? It's vague, um, and that's the real reason. And so I think the way what I feel like this is probably talking towards right here, certainly what we get from this singular chapter is that we've known already that Ichigo's mother passed away, and then he's very protective of his family, especially his sisters. And then that's why he became a Shinigami. That's why he was able, like, why he took this power from Rukia, even though it was a huge risk, and it thrust him into this other world, because he would do anything to protect these people that are close to him. And that is all born out of his inability, maybe, to protect his mother, right? Because he brings up this is the date that she died, no, rather, when she was killed. And so we get a little bit of glimpse of that, where, if this is actually Ichigo, and maybe that's her blood, but we get this evoking moment of, or evocative moment of, perhaps there being actual, you know, like violence, death, and it all being in the rain, washed away. Um, Here you can see where that kind of visual effect is chopping the lines here, kind of not great. I mean, like this could maybe more effectively kind of disappear into the background there, but there you can see a little bit of it where it's like clearly, um, that sort of stencil effect or whatever it is, right? That's added, that gradient. Um, because they have all those sorts of effects that they can put on after the fact that aren't just like, you know, like that sort of thing. The same thing here. Like that's all, that's added in a certain step of doing the art, but isn't just like the line work or whatever. And so it can interact in interesting ways. But I like that this kind of washes and fades to the present, and then we get this kind of, I love this chapter art, of, especially coming from like that black that's enveloping, and Ichigo kind of being this entity where like the past is very much, and like that darkness is very much a part of him. So kind of cool. He's also shrouded in black, not just in mourning, but also, he's a Shinigami, right? We hop back to the Kurosaki Clinic. Again, page turn into sequence, our setting kind of building, and we get our first image of the mascot character for Bleach, Kon. So, like I said, I'm probably going to swing between Kon and Kan. I'm pretty sure it's Kon because I think it's supposed to be Konpaku. Japanese is typically pretty consistent with its pronunciations because it's phonetic rather than alphabetic. So everything's just consonant pairs with it's all pairs of consonants and vowels. So your vowels are always going to be a, e, a, o, u. So the o should always be like an sound. So it should be kon. I think it should be konpaku. 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 I don't know. I'm not an expert in Japanese. I couldn't tell you exactly how it's supposed to be pronounced, but it's typically consistent, is what I'm saying. That's why you get names like Ichigo. You'll always have those pairs. That's why Japanese sounds the way that it does. Kan ends on that kind of harder consonant, which is kind of rare, but that's the idea, is that it's a shortening from Kanpaku. Anyway, or Konpoku. I don't know. It's Kan. You should go, kon, maybe. Konpaku? I don't know. I could talk about that forever, but I'm probably going to still fluctuate between the two because I've probably just called them between the two in my entire life, so whatever my brain thinks I should say at the time. But here we get that he's in this little mascot character, and we get a little bit of more explanation of that going forward. That essentially they were thinking, okay, well, we've got to do something with this mod spirit, we don't want to just destroy it from the previous volume and arc to chapter, right? Like I said, that's very much introducing this new character, and our new character is that mod soul, Kan. I think it's really cute that they decide Kai is too cool a name for this dork. That Kan probably fits him better. I think his little his little lion design is pretty cute. Obviously, becomes it's merchandise, becomes like a little mascot thing for Bleach. But kind of interesting with that. It's like, yeah, they they thought to put it in a corpse, but finding a corpse that was fresh was a lot harder than you'd think. So they chose the stuffed animal. A little bit on that, notably, that entire plot actually grew out of, this is like a story that Kubo's told more than once, where basically Kubo was like hearing some kids talk about her, like a kid had discarded like a teddy bear, and he had this whole story in his head. I don't know how much of it was true to what he had witnessed or not, but he'd imagined that this kid had gotten rid of this toy because it was old or it wasn't the newest nicest thing, and that they had just completely discarded it, and he felt kind of bad for it because it's hey, this thing that like you might love is like something that you just throw away, and that feels like kind of disrespectful in a way, right? Or negligent. I mean, it's just a thing, but I think trying to kind of present that within the scope of Bleach's narrative, where Soul Society would see the mod souls as just like a thing. They aren't really human souls. That they're just an object to be thrown away. And so in a lot of ways, the whole like, oh, well, we found this thrown away, discarded doll, and we put his soul into it. It fits as far as that character, right? It's iconic in that not only is it kind of an easy design that's easy to recognize, but iconic, or I guess emblematic, or whatever. It's representative of the character that Khan is. Um, he's also a character that is pretty goofy. You can't take seriously. So ergo, also the way he looks. Um, but yeah, we get this bit of internal narration of like Ichigo talking about like this is where that's where this story begins, right? I don't know how well that works. Also, again, Kubo playing with like dialogue and how to frame boxes. I think here we're going with just like the text and white to show internal narration, or internalized kind of mental sort of things, but that quickly drops as we move forward in the chapter. So I wonder how much that sticks around stylistically as we go forward, or what. Um, I love that the mod soul is drawn as Ichigo, because that's the body that he inhabited before, but as we know, the soul's just like a little pill. Um, I love this shot of Rukia and Ichigo with the soul pinch, waiting for a cat to get hit by a car. I mean, that's incredibly dark, but you know, yeah. Anyway, kind of going forward, let me check something as well here. Okay, I was just looking to see like different design things. Um, as always, Rukia is living in this closet. Um, she's getting dressed in her school uniform, which I guess she keeps in there. And we immediately get a gag / reminder that Kana is a huge pervert and is looking up her skirt. You just gotta hide both of them because this is both their physical bodies, so assumably Yuzu would be able to see them, right? She got different fruit hair clips. Was strawberries, now it's bananas. But yeah, we get this connection. So Mizuru kind of showing up to pick up Ichigo. Uh, you know, that the Mizuru is like, I think really at the start of Bleach, Mizuru is probably considered to be Ichigo's closest friend, which is interesting because we get these arcs that are about Chad, which certainly Ichigo and Chad are friends, even if like they aren't super close, and then Orihime, which like they're friends, but again they're more recent kind of high school friends, and they maybe hung out outside of school like once, if that. I mean, she's never been alone with him, right? So it's curious to think about. Whereas like Mizuru is like showing up at his place to like go walk to school with him and stuff. Like they're clearly kind of closer friends, at least enough so that he gets invited in, and that his sisters know about him. So it's kind of interesting. We get a little bit more about Mizuru, even though he hasn't been sort of a part of Bleach as far as those other characters have been so far. But yeah, whenever I talked about like that internalization here, he quickly goes back to the square boxes for those internalizations instead of just keeping them there. And I think that's maybe for the purpose of like now that we transition to a new page and we have Mizuru showing up, that's to kind of differentiate it from maybe being internalization on Mizuru's part. I don't know. Mizuru. I keep saying Mizuru. Mizuru. Mizuiro. Mizuru. Anyway, neat name regardless. Kind of interesting. So yeah, like all the memories were wiped from at least the people at school. Ichigo also seems to have forgotten Urahara's name. So it's unclear how much of Ichigo's memories have maybe been affected, or if he just forgot that guy's name, right? Because it's hard to remember people's names. Yeah, there's this reminder that he'd get in big trouble if it became known that he let Kon go. But we get like a little bit of that, right? At the end of last chapter, we got like this kind of foreboding sense that everything with Kon was gonna come back to be a problem. But that gets reminded to us here. I like that Rukia, in order to not have to deal with his family and everything, she leaves out the window, which is kind of a cute detail. But yeah, like you could tell already, like they're getting dressed for school. Like Ruki is in full school outfit, whereas Ichigo's got like his like t-shirt and his other kind of button up over that, and he's got like this cool long belt maybe. um, his wristbands, very punk. But yeah, no, she's got has nice brands. But yeah, here at Ichigo, we get that date, the 16th of July. As we know, the 17th is an important date, right? And as we come to find out, the 17th is whenever his mother died, right? So the fact that he's, looking at his watch and he's like, oh yeah, that's right, after waking up. Here he also has, I assume, an Al Pacino poster, which I believe in the volume information on characters confirmed that Ichigo was a fan of Pacino. So kind of cute that that's one of the posters that he has. Beats all the Bruce Willis references we've been getting. But yeah, and again, using the really art to be kind of really evocative. That entire background disappearing, us getting this kind of space of Ichigo being a lot smaller as he remembers that tomorrow is the this kind of sentimental date. So even though we don't know exactly what it is yet, we get that it's really something important and kind of maybe even sad. The way that we don't get to see Ichigo's expression, the way that he's framed here. And we mentioned in the last volume there was a similar framing for Rukia whenever she expressed to Urahara that she danger is where she operates, right? That she knows that she's in trouble, but that's where she kind of lives and where that troubled space is. And so this idea of this kind of the character being aware of something that we aren't, are kind of coming to terms with something, or having sort of like an emotion that doesn't want to get projected to us or to the other characters, maybe. This sort of maybe even resignation. We get that in them being turned away that way. Also, great framing here where we have Rukia kind of shot this way, so we can take it to like he's looking away, but our eyes also draw just over to that. And she has some concern, and we get answers on that immediately. So we get set up that we're going to the school setting, and then call to Tatsuki, return to her looking over at whoever's calling, or Hime's there, of course. They hang out. And they're talking about this like future me assignment, right, and imagining what they're like in the future. Even though this arc already is dealing a lot with the past, right? Obviously, Tatsuki wants to be this martial arts champion. That's pretty cool. She's also a pretty talented artist. Meanwhile, Orihime's imagination, it's just the best. This is like one of my favorite Orihime gags, is the future me, like shooting missiles. She has like flame breath or whatever, and destruction eye beams. Yeah, it's good stuff. But yeah, here we get this like unusually like positive kind of Ichigo, whereas Orihime immediately realizes like something's up, right? And she asks Tatsuki about it, and yeah, Tatsuki expresses that it's been like it took her 3 years to kind of figure it out, but clearly Ichigo kind of puts on like a happy face and sort of doesn't act as maybe affected as he is on the day before the anniversary of his mother's death. And then, on that day, he doesn't even show up at school at all, right? So it's clearly a pretty important thing to him. And we get here also, yet again, another character looking away, right? Very similar framing to what Ichigo had before. The All White to kind of build this as an emotional moment, as an important kind of moment. We'll focus on this character, but with the character looking away, we get the sense that there's something that they don't want to talk about, or something that's like hidden, or maybe even they're sort of facing otherwise, right? Um, and Orihime's got a bit of concern, and as we know, of course, Ruki is curious too, right? Jump back here, we get that crescent moon again. Kind of interesting, again, that imagery as we've connected it to the other world, to Soul Society, to Hollows, especially, usually punctuates attacks by Hollows. So, it's maybe here we can read that there's some connection there. Ishin's shirt here is absolutely ridiculous. I like that he says he got a haircut, but it's pretty much the same. But again, I talk about kind of Ichigo and fighting back against these sort of structures, right? These societies, right? Being the individual versus society. I think in a lot of ways, Ishin kind of represents that in like a microcosmic form, right? In the small form, and that he's the chairman, he has the decision-making power of the house, and he's always at odds with Ichigo. They're always kind of scrapping, right? So that's kind of cute that comes up here again. He's kind of delegating roles to everybody. Clearly, Yuzu's going to be in charge of lunch. She takes up all of the cooking and maternal stuff in general anyway. Karen's going to load the packs. I think that Ichigo, even though this is usually something that he kind of fights against, that he tends to find these rules especially burdensome because he's a growing teenage boy and all that. He's kind of happy to see his family, together and all of that. Maybe there's a bit of connection there. I love this shot that we get of Yuzu in Karen's room, and of course they cuddle up together. We got that before, and I wonder if that's something that just happens normally, that they're more comfortable sleeping in the same bed because they have each other to kind of be comfortable with, versus how much of that is whenever they are stressed out, they go to each other. Because certainly Yuzu and Karen were together, in the same bed in the arc earlier with the parakeets, where Karen was very upset about it. So I wonder if they normally just sleep in the same bed, even though they do have separate beds, but they share a room. And we can see already. I love that there's a lot of little details in this room to kind of build those characters. Where Yuzu's got kind of cuter things. She has these puppies and a little doll or something in her bed, maybe, or print. It's unclear. Meanwhile, you look over here, and she has this boat life, beat life. Some basically much more extreme sort of cover, regardless. But also, it looks like soccer, some sort of footballer. So sports. She's the more active of the two, and the less kind of cutesy. And again, we get that crescent moon, right? Really kind of not just selling, hey, this is nighttime, but also giving us that visual connection that hollows are Shinigami or something. There's this supernatural element at play here. Usually that, like I said, that punctuates our encounters with hollows so far, right? Anyway. Yeah, and so, Ruki is kind of saying, his family meeting looked like fun, but she's kind of oblivious, so she's finally kind of bringing that question. And here again, we get Ichigo looking away in this all white, where we get this kind of maybe sadder sort of tone from him, that it's a little bit more serious than her kind of goofing off, having this silly expression. As he expresses that, maybe you could take off, right? And that kind of throws Rukia, and she's a little bit more serious. And she's like, no, you've been acting strange all day. You can't take off. You got to do your duties. And really here, I think this is, while it's not said explicitly, right? Because he says it's the day that she was killed, right? So it's not explicitly said, who killed her or what the circumstances were. But given the visual language of how this is framed, what we know, we can already probably make the connection, right? That it's got to be something supernatural dealing with probably hollows, and that this kind of we get that several times, like hammering in the shot of the moon, right? And maybe it would be less significant if the moon wasn't used, if this particular crescent moon imagery wasn't used so much, and even especially in connection with Ichigo and these encounters with hollows and the Soul Society, well, not Soul Society, but like Shinigami and all of that, and like that kind of conflict. Like if it wasn't used so much that way, maybe we could just read it as kind of stylistic, or like showing that it's night or whatever. But the fact that we get this zoom in, especially in the second row here, where the focus is on just that moon, I think definitely tells us that this is an intentional element of design by Kubo. It wouldn't even be in any of these shots otherwise. Like, I don't think it would even be here if he wasn't particularly trying to evoke the idea that there was something supernatural that was a part of her death. So I think we're meant to read it as like an actual like attack, either by a Shinigami or a hollow. We don't know. Probably a hollow, as these usually punctuate hollow encounters. But there's this kind of foreboding sense that something supernatural happened. And Ichigo, the fact that he qualifies like she was killed, right? Kind of important. So yeah, I think for sure, even though we don't get it said explicitly, where the imagery is supposed to kind of make us think that's the case, right? Um, but same right. I love like the way that this is metered out just visually. Otherwise, is fantastic because we get Rukia, and she's kind of speechless as she has this whole wide really kind of captured by what Ichigo's saying whenever he expresses that it's the day that his mother died. And of course, again, we get this framing of Ichigo very lonely, looking out the window, looking away. And we constantly have him framed looking away until he turns around at that last bit. So we've got a lot of anticipation built throughout this entire chapter. This chapter's fantastic at building this anticipation where you get Ichigo kind of looking away and being kind of like thinking, oh yeah, that date, there's something going on. And Tatsuki, even she's looking away and she's like, oh, it's that day, right? And Ichigo won't just face us. He won't just tell us what it is, right? We don't understand what he's going through. He's putting on these really kind faces whenever he's talking to people, but Orihime recognizes that that's false, that like he's hiding something, right? And so we're wondering what's going on with Ichigo. What's he hiding? What's the importance of this date? And we get this confirmation, it's the day that his mother died, but he's still facing away even as he says that. So we're still like, wait, we're not given the catharsis yet. And of course, Rukia realizes this is pretty significant, more than just someone passing away, right? Um, and he qualifies that it's not whenever she died. And I like that we get this kind of sweeping shot, so we get to see Ichigo from kind of the side here. We get to see again this reminder of the moon. I think that's, like I said, incredibly significant. We get this bit where we see Rukia framed kind of behind him. We see the top of Ichigo's head, and then he finally turns around, and we have this kind of it's like this defiant and mixture of like pain and sort of like an ominous expression as Ichigo says that it is the day that she was killed. And I think just like that ending the chapter is like huge, because now we're like, whoa, what's going on? Like his mother was killed. He was there to witness it as a kid. Like clearly it's this trauma that's really important to his whole family. Um, like the fact that this complicates, like, because we already like from the first chapter, we knew that his mother was gone, right? That she had passed away, and that they were taking care of the daughters together, kind of, and you know, um, Ichigo's father was kind of keeping this household, and all the rules were like a little strident. Plus, it was this clinic. There was like a lot going on, but we were able to pick up all this connection of his mother being gone, and especially with those connections to, whenever he's talking about the parrot and how the parrot lost his mother, I say the parrot, it's not the parrot, it's Yuichi Shibata, I think that's the kid's name. The soul that was in the parakeet, though, had the same sort of like lost his mother, and they had that connection there, right? And so the idea of like dealing with a loved one's death, and death and the relationships that we have with others kind of being an important thing in Bleach, that getting brought to a head and complicated here whenever it's revealed that Ichigo's mother didn't just die, she was killed. And so suddenly, that opens us up to, okay, well, what's going to go happen in this plot? Like, how is that? Because that's given to us as a significant kind of thing. So we're immediately interested in like finding out what the circumstances were there and how this plot will handle that. And this whole volume is dedicated to it. So look forward to that. But yeah, overall, I think it's a fantastic chapter. I think it's the beginning of a story arc that I really I think is really a huge part of what sells early Bleach and makes it like kind of ends up being Bleach, its enduring kind of structure in a way, and that we get these sort of more serious connections between these characters, life and death, and the characters and the connections that they have with each other are like these kind of significant and grave things that like this is played pretty seriously, and it's like in a lot of other series, it's pretty common for our protagonists to have like their parents have been killed or passed away, or mysterious case one way or another. Um, but I think that Bleach gets a lot out of that other series don't. And a lot of that comes from really this emphasis on trauma and death and the supernatural and our relationships with others, those relationships being enduring as they're alive, and then the ways in which they can change and affect us after a person is dead. Um, there's a lot of that in Bleach, and I think that's the whole idea of like leveraging that to tell a story is what makes the story of Ichigo's mother's death so significant and so core to the identity of Bleach, in the way that a lot of its kind of more popular story arcs end up kind of being. And that like these antagonistic forces aren't just a big bad guy you have to kill, but like the real world kind of nuances of dealing with losing someone that is that close to you, and having these kind of connections. So as always, like I say, power of friendship is a pretty common shonen trope, or like the bonds that we have together, right? But Bleach always, I think, renders that in a very realistic, very I say down to earth, but like a very serious and I think mature way compared to the sort of tropish, easy writing that a lot of other authors will get away with. So I think that's one of my favorite things about Bleach, honestly. And I think this chapter and this entire story arc, this volume, does a fantastic job of kind of exploring. There will be a lot of other stuff in this volume that also is pretty significant to the identity of Bleach. So kind of neat. Also, kind of connecting to the other chapters we've gotten. Whenever I talk about those structures, right? We have these structures that we've been using in Bleach so far, where we introduce a character, there's, the supernatural that kind of gets involved with them, and, we come away from that encounter knowing more about the world and having kind of had a victory of sorts, right? And so we have that with Chad and or Hime, and the Hollows that attack them in general, and that gets messed with a little bit, where Khan initially seems like he's going to be the antagonistic force, in the next kind of arc, but it ends up being that like he ends up joining along and becoming a part of the crew, and that like that gets played in a different way. And I think here too, following that same structure, we introduce, that there's this conflict going on with Ichigo, and we get this focus on Ichigo's story. We've built out this other cast, but now let's bring it back to Ichigo, our main character. Let's develop him. And, so sure enough, I think also that's the other thing, as much as I'm speculating, like, yeah, we can use this moon as this visual indicator that maybe there was something supernatural going on. The fact that we've had those story structures so far, where we've had these characters that had this connection to somebody, something supernatural happened, there was trauma involved, and now they're fighting to kind of overcome that. That's all going to be bound up in that. So whenever we get that line that his mother was killed, we immediately, because of those other structures, are led to believe, oh, it must have been like something supernatural, like a hollow, right? So I think that's on purpose. It's purposeful. Kubo knows what he's doing here, and this is delivering on all of that and kind of using those structures that he built before to build Ichigo in a way that we might not expect. That he's got like a little bit more going on than maybe we realized. We certainly again knew that like his protectiveness and his mother were there, but this is what informs all of that, because if he was unable to protect her, right? If he made this promise to himself that he would protect others until he died after she did, that's pretty significant, right? I mean, that informs literally everything about his character going forward. So we're getting a little bit more of that depth. It was there before, like certainly we saw like seedlings of it, but here it's kind of explicitly told and shown to us, which I think is cool. We get delivery on those elements that we've been having teased out so far. Anyway, that's it for analysis and response. As always, like I said, coming to response, I try to keep my response short. I want to keep, things that I'm, just speaking from personal kind of context to a minimum, to a degree. Like, oh, I liked it, right? Thumbs up. This is less a review of the chapter and more, like I said, response. And I think this chapter is fantastic. I really love it. I think that there isn't really a lot missed here. There's a perfect amount of like levity in the middle to kind of bring us away from, with all the other stuff about like the future selves. I think that's there narratively to kind of give us a beat of regular school life and kind of a pause, and then whenever Ichigo gets introduced back into the mix, the fact that he's not jumped right into this sort of silly scenario, but we know something's wrong, brings us back to wondering what's eating at Ichigo, what's giving him a problem, what's the issue. So, you know, yeah, just like fantastic work, like narratively, artistically, you know, this is a chapter that's doing a lot of work within a short amount of space and doing it very effectively. I think a lesser author would be way too wordy or show way too much, but there's a lot of restraint here. Like just this first bit shows a lot of intentional restraint on Kubo's part, and like teasing all of this out and giving us just enough information. Um, Also, another connection to the supernatural. This is maybe a minor one, but the shot that we get of below of framing the telephone wires right in that post at night, that is really connected to a lot of like establishing Bleach. Like that's like Bleach like scene setting for, hey, something supernatural is going on in this town. Like 101, like we get, because that's what we get at the very beginning, right? Rukia is up on the telephone post, like she's like kind of perched up there, right, whenever she first appears in the human world. So like that's like some of the first shots that we get is the shot of the moon and the shot of Rukia being up on this kind of this thing that tells us like this is an urban environment, but also we have these supernatural things going on, right? And we get that shot, a lot of other times too. Here it is again, and like it's no surprise. One of the very first shots that we get in the trailer for this is current to whenever I'm putting this episode out, but we just got the promotional the PV trailer for the Bleach anime returning with the final arc of Bleach, the 1,000 Year Blood War arc. And one of the first shots we get before we see our protagonist, before any of that, is one of the city with these, these power lines, right? And I think it's because they're keyed into that visual language, to that, hey, this is how we can, immediately tell someone, this is an urban setting with spirits going on, happening within it, and like So much so they don't even have to show the spirits. They can just show the power line. And that's already been used, coupled with this other imagery so much. And here we get it again with the death of Ichigo's mother, and immediately setting us in this, like, okay, there's something supernatural going on in this urban environment. And it's maybe even deadly. Right? So it's interesting that, like, that is another bit of visual shorthand that Kubo uses sometimes that ends up being really important. It's easy not to think about, like, at all, but I think it's certainly there. If you see that too, let me know. If that's, something that you think is just, me making a stretch, let me know too. But anyway, this is already going on, close on an hour. I need to, wrap into the the spoilers and connection, because I certainly have some things to say there too. Longer episode, introduction of a very important chapter, of course. So, spoilers. If you're not into spoilers, get out now. I'm gonna try to be concise. I don't want this video to run too long. If you want me to say more, if you're ever like, I want the longer episodes, Karkur Gold, hook me up. Then maybe I will. I don't know. I don't know if this runs over long for people, or if they feel like I'm rambling too much. I'm always trying to be kind of self-critical of that. Kind of keep new ideas coming at you. But, spoilers for this chapter. Things going on, how it connects otherwise. So let's get into it. So immediately we get that June 17th. We get, obviously we know this is Misaki and her death, right? That she's been killed, right? Ostensibly by Grand Fisher, the Hollow. I love, like, this kind of sweep out of the black from Ichigo. If you want to talk about kind of some fourth level nonsense, some connecting this bigger, the way that this darkness sweeps out from Ichigo reminds me a ton of the Almighty and Yuhabak, or, Yawak, or the Quincy Lord, or whatever you want to call him, right? That there's this kind of darkness, but that darkness is one with, like, that darkness that is enshrouding his past, that is a part of Ichigo, but also is responsible for his mother's death. Right, because whenever he took back his powers, it's what rendered her from being able to use her Quincy power to protect herself. So in a way, he's responsible for her death as well. Right? We get Khan. Sad thing that he doesn't become more significant as the series goes forward, but I really do like Khan's character. Talking about Burn the Witch, I think it's no surprise that Burn the Witch has Balgo as one of the main characters, as being this kind of pervy dumbass, because I think Kubo really likes writing that sort of character. And so Balgo being, like, among the three mains, I mean, obviously it's easy to consider it to be kind of, especially as it's been written so far, the kind of the Ninny and Noel show, because they take up so much of the forward action. But the one shot starting with Balgo and keeping the POV on Balgo, and Balgo being significant and even drawing the sword later in Burn the Witch, speaks towards, I think, the fact that Kubo really wants to have a character like that, and play with a character like that as a central character. Notably, I think Chainsaw Man does a fantastic job of doing that, because he just makes that his legit main character. But that's another author's manga. Don't worry about me. Yeah, I don't know what this is a poster for back here. Anyway, I like to decide Kai is way too cool a name for Khan. We get, Khan Pervin on Rukia. Khan will perv on anyone. I like Ichigo being drawn real chibi here. Usually we get him a lot taller. But this is more me reacting. Let's actually talk about actual connections, right? Some of the other stuff going on. I know one of the things that people bring up a lot too is an early connection to the Quincy. This is what I was looking for earlier in the chapter, is Ichigo having kind of Quincy bed sheets, right? And we don't see him in this chapter. At least I'm pretty sure we don't get a good look at his bed. And the few, like, shots we get look like just regular white bed sheets. I like that he says that, like, Rukia says that Haddon Clogs told me his name, right? I'm pretty sure he introduced himself to Ichigo as Kisuke, or as Urahara, maybe even as Kisuke Urahara, whenever they met on the previous chapter. I can't remember off the top of my head, but I thought he's like, yeah, whatever, he's Mr. Haddon Clogs. He's actually, I like how he's like, I'm glad I can't remember it, which is interesting because Kisuke has so much of a connection to Ichigo, right? But here, that gets downplayed, I think, intentionally so. Um, but Kisuke also isn't that important to this arc, so I think it's also kind of hand waving him aside until he becomes much more important later on. In a lot of ways, I think Kisuke ends up kind of getting backgrounded until after Rukia gets stolen away, and then you're like, oh shit, yeah, Kisuke's around, whenever he does show up. So it's pretty neat. Yeah. Again, fantastic drawing, kind of doing up of Ichigo here. Uh, you know, doo get these future characters. Interesting that Tatsuki wanted to be the champion fighter, and Chad ends up being that. I don't know if the future chapters really spoke towards what Tatsuki ended up doing with her life. Orihimi's well on her way to being a death robot, right? Obviously, she becomes like, I think she's a stay-at-home mom even to their kids, or their child, at least to Kazui. I think that's his name. Yeah, I couldn't remember Michiru's name off the top of my head. Be real, but it's cute that she's showing up and that like, her classmates are like not completely dumped aside, as unfortunately, kind of ends up being the case. But that's where the story takes us, Again, talking about the crescent moon and that the significance of that, and especially connecting it to hollows, I think is where we're supposed to be at the plot. Clearly, in the larger scheme of things, we can connect that to Zangetsu and to Ichigo's powers, right? That imagery ends up being kind of co-opted into Ichigo's whole thing, the Zangetsu moon cutter, right? And especially like connecting in a lot of ways to old man Zangetsu as well, right? Rather than just the hollow. And so I think maybe this this being here framed and used so much, signifying its connection to his mother's death. It's already maybe a visual indicator, not just of hollows being involved, but of Yuha. But probably more of the hollow stuff, to be honest. Though I think it is interesting that kind of the whole Zangetsu thing and the whole significance of the moon as connected to Ichigo is pretty important, especially Ichigo's powers, as we know, which are largely derived from this, this entity that's responsible for his mother dying. So kind of interesting, kind of neat that that's there. And we get reminded of that too. Yeah. Otherwise, clearly this is at the time being written towards like Grand Fisher, so usually I don't want to project too much in saying like, oh yeah, he totally had the plan that it was Yuha that took her powers and that all of that. But so a lot of the analysis, I'll usually connect this visual imagery to hollows because I think that's what it's more immediately supposed to be, but then later gets sort of co-opted into Zangetsu stuff and otherwise. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know about all how much that's meant to kind of connect in the larger, but certainly I can see some connection there. But otherwise, we're just getting kind of the sense. I like that Ichigo already has, of course, the sense that she was killed, right? And as we know, like that was either indiscriminate or a deliberate attack. I mean, it's interesting that it ends up being a little bit of both. I think the idea of it being indiscriminate, that it's just this entity taking this power and causing a lot of people to suffer, for his goals, for these societal goals, right? I think that's more at core with Bleach's themes rather than it being, like an entity that just attacked her specifically, like this hollow Grand Fisher. So there's a lot of people that kind of weren't okay with that twist, that turn, that like, oh, the person who really killed Ichigo's mother was Yuha, and that's how he could be the antagonist, right? There are people that felt like a little bit like, okay, you're just pulling bullshit, but like you do have to explain why Ichigo's mother. If you're gonna make Ichigo a Quincy and you're gonna make his mother a Quincy, then you have to explain why she didn't have her powers to protect herself, right, against Grand Fisher. So, even though maybe it does read a little bit as retconning or rewriting the manga, I think at least that part of it being this sort of person with a lot of power that is just kind of having things happen that affect individuals in a way that is traumatic, but they don't care because they're just pursuing this sort of larger societal kind of vision that's independent of the connection to those people. I think that's much more the heart of Bleach than like, I'm the bad spirit and I eat your mom. Like, right? Right? Which, yeah. I can't help but feel that that's much more thematically connected and makes a lot more sense in that regard, if you're trying to talk about a more satisfying narrative kind of conclusion for that death. But at the same time, it's like, yeah, some deaths are senseless. Some things, these tragedies do happen, and they don't have to be a part of a larger kind of narrative thing. So I don't know. I'm at some odds with it, but ultimately I'm happy with that kind of twist. And the idea that we get established from the get go that she was killed, and that's ultimately the conflict that's with Ichigo's character, right? Is that he wants to be able to protect those from the forces that be that might kill them, that might bereave them. Whether that means fighting Hollows, or if that means standing up against Soul Society, or if that means fighting against the Quincy and Yuha. No matter what, Ichigo, because of this murder, if she just passed away normally, he wouldn't have the same conviction. But because it was a murder, because he was unable to do anything, that's what's kind of left him here with this sort of strong conviction. And that's what informs all the battles that he has moving forward throughout the entire series. And I think that's beautiful, and I think that's wonderful. And I think that's, the more that they can lean on that, and Kubo certainly leans on that, the more, again, thematically consistent and fulfilling the manga will be. Whew. But yeah, I mean that's the big thing here. Really, what's going on largely in this chapter is a lot of setting that up and a lot of delivering on that. Yeah, tell me what you think about like connecting the moon and Zangetsu, connecting the moon, especially the old man Zangetsu, um, especially to maybe even Yawak, Yuhabak. Certainly, even if the moon is maybe more of a connection to Hollows and Hueco Mundo, for sure, fucking Hueco Mundo. God, it kills me every time. I'm like, maybe this is a connection that punctuates the Hollow attacks. It's like, fucking, once you get to Hueco Mundo, it's so obvious. It's like, oh yeah, okay, yes, the moon is clearly fucking supposed to represent like this sort of hollow shit going on, this supernatural threat of all that. But here I don't think it's because Hueco Mundo hasn't been, it's been introduced, but we haven't gotten a name for it, we haven't seen it or anything like that. It shows up in the anime, I believe. We get to see Hueco Mundo as early as Acid Ringer's arc, because I think we get to see him getting devoured by Hollows, the brother whose name isn't coming to my mind at all. Anyway, but in the manga, yeah, we don't get to see that for a while yet. But certainly, I feel like the way that the ink is used here, the way that this darkness is kind of coming out of Ichigo, and I like how it especially connects to this darkness that enshrouds this kind of page. That feels so reflective of Yawak or Yuabak or whatever, and the Almighty especially. Um, and like even more so because he could see all the different timelines, right? He's able to see all the branches in time. So this being framed as a date ends up being kind of important. And I'll talk more about the framing of a date in the next episode, because I think there's some more general stuff that I can talk about. But dates as trauma, as like whenever we use dates like 9/11 and things like that, it's because we're framing like a before after of a traumatic event, trauma existing within time. And so that connection between trauma, time, dates, and Yuha Bak's ability to perceive all these different realities, I think there maybe can be a connection there too. But certainly, fucking this visual is it really reminds me of that. And I don't know. Let me know if you see that too. If that's something that you're seeing here, or if that's just completely in my head. Because it's hard not to shake that after having read the series, you know. Um, Certainly to make a connection to his Shinigami kind of powers, at least. If not, obviously the visual is like this kind of darkness encroaching on Ichigo, and Ichigo being, in between that kind of that darker place. But he's also enshrouded in the clothes of it, right? The Shihaku show. So curious, right? Curious indeed. Anyway, that's it for this episode. Thanks so much for watching me. Thanks so much for following along with Bleach Revisited. As always, this has been Karkura Gold. Never forget, spirits are forever with you. Stay gold.